Sponsored by Surfshark. Android user tries the iPhone. It is the most tired angle on YouTube, and I really didn't want to use it, especially since I carry an iPhone in my bag for its camera all the time anyway. But during my 3 weeks with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, it's really all I've been able to think about, that juxtaposition. More than any in recent memory, this iPhone feels like an Android. 233 grams and 6.9 inches of burly, brutalist beefcake that, after a week on the iPhone Air, feels just comically massive. I mean, even the Fold 7 is lighter than this thing. And my review unit from Apple leans into that overload with 2 terabytes of onboard storage and an Apple Watch action button matching paint job, whose cosmic orange screams, "Notice me." If the base iPhone is the value sedan and the Air is the flashy sports car, then the Pro Max is the fully loaded pickup that puts function over form. And that's not always for the better. While I've used many Android phones larger than this, the Pro Max feels so monstrous that I've found it easier to drop, a fact reflected in the dings that now dot the casing. While I celebrate the return to aluminum that made stunning colors like this easier to achieve than with titanium, the anodization on that aluminum is brittle and susceptible to a type of damage called spalling. This is very well described by iFixit, by the way, whose reporting I will link in the description. That said, these scars came from multiple concrete parking lot drops. Sorry, Apple. And any phone would look at least this rough after that. So I think positioning this as some kind of scandal is kind of grasping at straws. In other hardware news, the bright anti-glare display came in handy in the Hawaiian sun during the world's least appropriate camera test. More on that in a second. If you remember my iPhone Air review, you'll already know the speakers on the Max are loud and deep. And the much ballyhooed vapor chamber keeps the Pro Max cooler, too. Not that I'm into mobile gaming enough to push that new processor to its limits, but with the amount of mobile hotspotting I do, combined with constant camera captures in a sunny and still summery September, it's nice to have a phone that keeps its cool. There's also the new center stage selfie shooter, which I talked about in the iPhone Air video, and that new sensor does a wonderful job, whether you're backlit or otherwise. But we're not going to talk about the cameras just yet, because iOS 26... Shut the door. Take a seat. Let's start with the good. For those of us accustomed to customization, there are more thematic and color possibilities than ever before. I love the lengthened lock screen clock with its smart obfuscation. Apple's Restore functionality is class-leading, and iOS's app selection also sets a high bar, with exclusives that I miss when I switch back to my Razr or Fold. I don't mean games. I'm talking about utilities like Flighty. I know I showed it off in the Air video, but I was actually able to use it in this review process on a layover in Hawaii, and it actually saved me a lot of time. It gave me gate information for my connection that my airline app and even the airport's overhead monitors didn't have. I'm also talking about Adobe Premiere, the market leader for video editing, coming to the iPhone. Even weirdos like BitChat came to iOS first. Couple that with the network effect of the iPhone, and you get an experience whose stickiness is infamous. For a change of pace, I actually used iMessage during this review, and while I continue to disagree with the way Apple implemented it by bonding your personal phone number to a proprietary messaging service that requires a particular handset, I have to say I see why people like it. It's feature-rich, it's available on all your Apple devices, and even its cutesy toys are pretty fun. And now, factor in AirDrop. On one of those flights to Maui, I switched seats with a woman who wanted an aisle. And when she saw me taking a bunch of photos out the window, I think she maybe had a little bit of regret and asked me to send my photos to her. Well, she had an iPhone, like more than half the people in America, and sending via AirDrop was simple. It was private, didn't need to exchange phone numbers, didn't need to wait for something to upload to the cloud. It was just 10 seconds, and we were done.
it's really cool. And yes, Android has that with nearby share, and I really, really like that. But again, the sheer number of users in the United States with iPhones makes that network effect quite pronounced.
But as I said in my last video, the grass isn't always greener. iOS 26 seems to suffer from added complexity. When the dynamic island expands with contextual data, it sometimes displaces the network indicator, making me think I've lost my data connection. You can't always rely on the phone to keep doing something in the background, like sharing your location on Google Maps or Instagram. My Wi-Fi would often turn itself back on seconds after I disabled it, which was really annoying. You'll find more odd overlaps and conflicting shapes than usual, plus a dollop of liquid glass fuzziness. And I gotta repeat a point I made in my Air review. Skip ahead if you never talk to your phone, but dictation on the iPhone is substantially inferior. I talk to my iPhone in just the same way I dictate to Gboard on my Android phones, and it's just bad. It doesn't matter if I'm doing the dictating or iOS is transcribing someone else's words, it's always worse than the Android experience. And no, I'm not just saying that to sell more Clicks keyboards. Not even installing Gboard fixes this, since its voice input on the iPhone requires this awkward and slow overlay. Oh, and hey look, another dynamic island overrun. I get that these are specific little details, but Apple usually nails esoteric corners of the experience. And that makes these shortfalls even more frustrating. The details are done much better where it really counts on a phone like this: the triple cameras. Moving all sensors to 48 megapixels and switching out the older 5x telephoto for a 4x turns out to be a pretty good idea. Similar to Samsung pulling its 10x telephoto back to a 5x a couple years back. But you know what? I don't need to geek out about the imaging specs. I just care that it gets the shots I need in environments where the difference between nailing it and not is measured in seconds. And you don't need to believe me about the iPhone's video superiority. You just need to look at the Qualcomm event from last week, where I shot a lot of these samples. Qualcomm, you may recall, makes the chips behind the vast majority of high-end Android phones, so its annual summit is typically a place where iPhones are politely concealed. But this year, it seemed like every influencer and content creator there was using a 17 Pro or Max.
This is a front-facing video sample from the iPhone 17 Pro.
Thank you, Pro Max.
Oh, sorry.
Come on, don't, get him off the boat. Now sure, a lot of that's because of the timing. Most of us were still deep in our review process. But I'm here to tell you that iPhones make up the vast majority of mobile filming at all mobile tech events. Because despite all the capabilities Qualcomm and others build into their chips, and they are potent, the implementation of those capabilities ultimately falls to the phone manufacturers. And so video quality varies wildly from phone to phone. By contrast, the vertically integrated iPhone is so consistent. Sure, it may be a bit gauzy at times, and on one occasion the lenses took much too long to transition when zooming. This guy, by the way, walked barefoot up a mountain, which was very impressive. But otherwise, the Pro Max delivered almost unimpeachable footage, damn near every time I called upon it. Which I did often while filming the iPhone Air review, by the way. Just as it does on Samsung phones, dual capture comes in handy when I want to show you things happening around me. And if you're more ambitious than I am with raw capture and color grading and such, the iPhone excels at that stuff too. On the static side, Apple's default color representation is right on, but since I find that boring, I was happy to find a more streamlined version of photographic styles, which let me impose filters to add some personality. I don't like the interface that makes me stretch all the way to the top and then all the way to the bottom to achieve this every time I want to, but I do like that if you're listening to music or a podcast, iOS no longer pauses that playback when you want to record a video clip. Not sure if that's new, but I like it. So yes, surprise of the century, the iPhone will be my backpack B-roll camera for another year. And if that frustrates you as an Android fan, I get it, because I want these cameras in a foldable that would be more useful for my needs. And I do use my Razr and Flip 7 review units in this way quite often. But you can tell when I do by the diminished video quality relative to the iPhone. And if I used TikTok and Instagram more often, platforms that favor iPhone footage, well, that gulf would be even greater. Finishing up with the details. I still don't like eSIM, but at least Apple gave us something in exchange this time by filling the former slot space of the physical SIM with more battery, and the resulting staying power is deeply appreciated. I couldn't kill this phone before bedtime, no matter how much I used it, and I used it an awful lot. By the end of this review period, I realized I had fallen out of the habit of looking at the battery meter. I just forget it's there because it's not really relevant. And finally, this iPhone is also a good phone. Reception is on point, even on AT&T, which is the weakest of the nationals in my neighborhood. And it outdid the Motorola Razr Ultra when it came to canceling out background noise on a windy street in the city, even if the voice isolation controls are yet again not where I expect them to be. So what we have is a piece of hardware far more powerful than anything Apple's ever offered, in a bold design and color combination that highlights that exceptionalism, for a price that's frankly not as high as I expected. $11.99 for 256 gigs? Well, that's cheaper than the equivalent Samsung S25 Ultra and the same price as Google's Pixel 10 Pro XL. While Apple doesn't deliver as many AI-powered bells and whistles, and iOS 26 is kind of on the rough side, the iPhone 17 Pro Max still delivers a very solid experience for the creative professionals and road warriors for whom it's designed. Just maybe consider a case if you're as clumsy as I am. I used to think VPNs were only for people doing shady stuff online, until I started spending over 100 days a year on the road. This video is sponsored by Surfshark, which I use to keep my browsing between me and the site I'm visiting. Why does that matter? Well, it lets me keep watching my favorite shows even when I'm out of the country. It lets me shop in the currencies I'm used to, bank the same way I always do, and for the same selection of content I'm used to seeing. And when I travel to countries that restrict access to certain sites, like the ones I need to do my job, Surfshark keeps me in business. In short, it's a tunnel to the internet I need that follows me wherever my travels take me. Go to surfshark.com/MrMobile and use code MrMobile at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. This review was produced following 3 weeks with an iPhone 17 Pro Max review sample provided by Apple. Due to schedule pressure, portions were filmed at the Snapdragon Summit on Maui, for which Qualcomm provided travel and lodging, and I also produced some sponsored content for the company on site. But no company had editorial input or copy approval privileges concerning any of this content, nor did Apple receive a preview prior to publication. Subscribe to the MrMobile on YouTube and follow me on Threads at Captain2Phones. Till next time, from Michael Fisher, thanks for watching. And stay mobile, my friends.